I'm ready for 26.3, and I haven't even updated to 26.2, and I'm going to be ready for 26.4 after I get 26.3 until the shit is fixed. So it's probably going to be 27.
That might be hopeful.
That might be a little bit expecting too much too soon.
I just don't think the FaceTime stuff's on the radar at all. I mean, it might be, I suppose, but I don't think it is.
Well, I think a lot of things will get on the radar soon. At least that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth it to hope.
Just with the
organizational changes.
Organizational changes, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
I want to hear about this. Do you have follow-up?
I don't think so.
I had all sorts of follow-up, and I neglected to try to store it outside of my brain, and therefore I have no follow-up. Or as a result, I have no follow-up.
Yeah, I had to look and make sure. No, I do not have any follow-up. I probably should, but I haven't even watched the next episode of Stranger Things yet.
I was going to ask that. I finished Becca and I finished Murderbot.
Nice.
Yeah, based on how it ended, I wasn't sure if there was going to be a second season, and so I went to look it up, and there's a second season. It got renewed for a second season, rather.
I was not sure. And that was part of why I was holding my tongue, because it's, on the one hand, you could say they ended it in a way where there is no second season, but you could also say they ended it where they could absolutely do a second season.
Yeah, so it makes me wonder if there will be, it makes me wonder about the cast, who would be returning.
And that may be part of why it was done the way it was done, was so it could be, like, they may not have had a definitive direction yet, you know?
Right. So, I mean, obviously, Alexander Skarsgård needs to come back.
I would hope so. But you could also, I mean, you could maintain the premise and just have a different model every time, too. Yeah. That could be interesting.
I don't think Clark Gregg is coming back unless Murderbot watches some old episodes of... I can't remember the name of the show.
Yeah, I don't remember it either, but I know what you're talking about.
I was watching the other day was it the weekend? I don't know. At some point, we had a day where it was just like, let's a 0 day. I don't know. I'm pulling this term from thru hiking. When thru hikers have a day where they don't make any progress on trail, and they're just like, whether they're staying in town or they, I think a good example of this is like some people will go, if you're hiking the Pacific Crest Trail, it is not uncommon to take a side quest and summit Mount Whitney. And it I don't know how many miles of hiking it is. It's not inconsequential. It's in double digits, but not like, I don't think it's 20, but I don't recall. Anyway, it's a common thing for thru hikers to do, and that would, even though they hike, let's say they hike 20 miles, it's a 0 day because it's no forward progress on the long trail.
That makes sense.
And so I like the term 0 day. So we had a 0 day where we did nothing, and I say we did nothing, but she was knitting, and Becca was knitting, and she's that's been her new hobby, post-Christmas hobby. She's been knitting all sorts of things. Anyway, she was like, let's watch Star Trek. And I'm like, Star Trek? Is there a specific Star Trek you want to watch? And I was like, she said, pick one. And I was like, okay. And I picked the 2009 movie. And then I think we watched Into Darkness, and later we watched Beyond. And I was noticing in Beyond that Sulu, his character, was meeting his significant other, and it was another man. And I was like, oh, I love that they made Sulu gay as well. I guess maybe like it's not an homage. I'm not sure what term I'm looking for, but a nod to George Takei having to be, in the closet for so long and being, and for all the gay folks that were discriminated against during the 60s, 70s, I mean, even through today, I guess, but it's easier, but it's, we've come a ways where I think that he had, I would assume that George Takei was in the closet for a long part of his career. I don't know, didn't look it up, but just that's my assumption. And to a place where they're doing a reboot and his character is played by another Asian man, and they were able to make his character gay, and I thought that was nice. I didn't remember that, or maybe the whole time I was watching Beyond, I couldn't remember if I'd seen it before. I know I saw the first one in the cinema, and I'm pretty sure I saw Into Darkness in the cinema, but I think I bought the Blu-ray, but not the first one. And I didn't even know about Beyond until sometime later.
I don't think Beyond was, it wasn't horrible, but it's definitely not one that I rank as preferable out of the newer set.
It's not the best thing I've seen Simon Pegg write. And maybe it's not his writing. I don't know. I agree with you. It was...
If I remember correctly, the director changed with Beyond as well.
I would expect so.
Yeah.
But I was going to say it was it pulled a lot from Star Trek Generations, where it's like, I think that was part of the reason why I was wondering, have I seen this, was like, didn't they crash the Enterprise? Didn't the Enterprise crash in Star Trek Generations in a similar way? Weren't there people studying the Nexus in Star Trek Generations? Not Star Trek: The Next Generation, but
the movies. I know which
okay.
one you're talking about. Yeah.
I figured you did, but I wanted to make that distinction for the listeners.
I think so, but it's been a long time since I've watched Generations, but that sounds very similar.
Well, I know they crashed. I know there was the Nexus in Generations, and I know that they crashed the Enterprise. I should have said that. I know
okay. So then the Nexus piece was the piece that I couldn't remember the impetus for what was being studied, but I did know the Enterprise was crashed.
Because Generations is the one where they get touched. I think Picard gets touched by the Nexus, and he meets Captain Kirk, and William Shatner reprises his role as Kirk.
Correct.
And he's just living the same day, the same moment in time again and again and again. And yeah. So anyway, but I'm pretty. I just don't remember how they. I don't know. There was a lot that reminded me of Generations. So
at some point, I need to actually go back and watch all of those again. I don't rewatch them like I do the Star Wars movies.
Yeah. So when J.J. Abrams rebooted Star Trek in 2009, I thought it was such a clever idea. Especially getting Leonard Nimoy to. Oh my God! This was oh my God! I can't believe we stumbled on this. It was stuck in my brain somewhere. This is the follow-up I wanted to have. I just because I just remembered a thing that I was going to say about it, and we're actually going to get to the follow-up that I wanted I neglected to write down. So wow, this is fortuitous. I interrupted myself, and now I need to get back on track. So when J.J. Abrams rebooted the series, I thought it was clever, because they were able to, the casting was excellent. Leonard Nimoy reprised his role as Spock Prime, and that was pretty cool. And they were able to branch the timeline so that they could take the same characters and essentially give them a they were able to do whatever they wanted with the characters. They didn't have to stick to some sort of canon, and I thought that was really clever. What I remember reading was there was a fourth movie that was, I don't even know that it got into pre-production. But when I was reading about the reboot, I came across a bit of discussion about where Tarantino had approached the studio about directing a fourth or I don't know if it was directing or writing, but being involved in a fourth Star Trek movie, and I think they asked him to direct, and he neglected. He said, "No, I'm not going to direct." But it never got off the ground. The fourth movie never got off the ground, and also Anton Yelchin also passed away tragically right before the third Star Trek Beyond was released, like about a month before it was released, and so they were able to give him some recognition in the credits. But yeah, it was that was the thing. There was I think that's as close as I'll ever get to a Tarantino directed Star Wars movie, is that he was in talks to do a Star Trek movie.
That would be interesting. I think it would be more interesting to see him do a Star Wars movie than a Star Trek one.
Agreed.
Just because of the
yes. The lightsaber alone.
Yeah. What I was trying to think of the word I was blanking on the word. The likelihood of lightsaber massacre being involved. Like that would just be.
I mean, they could get him to come in and direct a scene, the Order 66 scene, and that would work for us, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Because that was a massacre. So I mean, they toned it down in the movie.
Oh, drastically.
Yeah,
I was actually surprised they showed him go to the temple and ignite a lightsaber with kids at all. Younglings. That's dark for Star Wars.
It is dark.
I would like to see a relatively dark Star Wars movie that explores Darth Maul, though. Like that, to me, that's a story that would be really intriguing and potentially extremely violent.
Now, let me ask, if you were to watch, is that something where you would be it be satisfactory to watch that as an animated? Like, is there any animated version of that would be like, oh yes, I don't need to see a live action version?
I enjoy what they've done with most of the Star Wars animated stuff, so I'm not going to just completely write it off, but I really want to see a live action version of that. So I mean, it's possible if the animation was less like most of their animation projects.
Well, it couldn't be. Yeah, it couldn't be anything like their current animation projects. Yeah. I don't think.
But possibly. There's been enough done with Batman that's dark enough and gritty enough from an animation standpoint that I can't completely write it off. I just would really like to see live action.
Right. Yeah, it's like I don't think they'll ever make the Killing Joke into a non-animated movie.
Yeah, probably not. That would be great to see, though.
I don't know why they haven't.
Honestly, I think if Heath Ledger had been available continually, he would have been the perfect one to bring that version of the Joker to life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because his Joker really reminded me of that incarnation of the Joker.
And that was still Mark Hamill voicing Joker.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Man, it's dark.
I do like that one, though.
Tell me about the codebreaker that may have solved the Black Dahlia and Zodiac killings. Because those are two that I find Zodiac. These are two cases that I find so. I mean, like everybody, like most other people, I find them very interesting. I'm not really like true crime is not a genre that I just love, but both of these I have found very fascinating.
So interestingly enough, these I probably don't know as much about the cases as the majority of people who have a fascination with them know. I know the overall arcs and most of the real high level background. But what fascinated me about this is go ahead.
Let me interrupt. For Zodiac, what more do you need to know than was presented in David Fincher's 2007 Zodiac?
Yeah, I don't think you need to. It's just more.
Yeah.
I wanted to preface it with I haven't done any real independent reading about it, so what I would know would be the level of depth and intrigue and all that any average layperson would know.
Yeah, I was going to say
kind of what I was making
all of
sure I emphasized. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure all of what I know is from that movie, and then reading the Wikipedia article, reading the IMDb trivia for the movie, and then the Wikipedia article on Zodiac. That's about all I know. So, and then Black Dahlia less.
Yeah. So what I found interesting about the article, part of why I wanted to put it in here, predominantly is just because there in the modern day of independent investigation, whether it's professional, amateur, hobbyist, whatever, in the modern era of access to information and being able to have that many different people think through and look at things, it's just always fascinating to me when something like this happens. Just because I like to try to understand the thought patterns that created any type of hypothesis or theory. In this particular article, it's kind of misleading because the code breaking piece I don't think actually has as much to do with, I mean, I shouldn't say it that way. The amateur codebreaker bit could be taken out of the headline and it would still be fitting to discuss and all. The only reason the amateur codebreaker piece is there, I think, is to make the headline more appealing, and because the cipher used with the Zodiac killings was considered unbreakable. Generally speaking, that's part of the one of the predominant issues with making headway to the case and why it became a cold case.
Right. Wasn't at some point wasn't it considered the Zodiac wasn't clever? It was just sloppy and not well done.
There's been multiple theories.
Okay.
And so the learning more about the case from this article lends more credence to that kind of theory, where it's not so much that it was remarkable, but it's just that certain things didn't line up in a certain way, and so he was kind of lucky for a prolonged period of time to not be looked into further. Partially luck, partially actions taken on his part to try to go off grid and disappear as well. But anyway, so the whole article felt very interesting from the standpoint of there's a lot more there from this was a suspect and this evidence trail kind of painted a picture toward this person, but there was some sloppiness throughout the investigation and maybe just a nature of the time and what they had access to, or maybe the alibi seemed fine, and then they didn't get to the point of cross-examination until later after he disappeared. I'm not trying to make it sound like the investigation was sloppy, more that like any other investigation, you can see with the benefit of hindsight and retrospect where certain things, if they hadn't happened quite the way they had, probably would have led to this person being even more of a suspect than they were much earlier on in the investigation, which I think is fairly commonplace with people who get away with a crime for a prolonged period of time. Because, just to back up ever so slightly, the likelihood of a crime being solved statistically dissipates with time.
Right.
So the more time removed, the less likely it will be solved. And so if you make some fortunate steps early on in the investigation or redirect interest long enough to have some luck go your way with evading authorities in general, like you could make all of that paint a similar picture here. So it could be that he was clever enough to create that confusion and issue, or he was just lucky, and it's not so much that he was that clever as much as he was fortunate based on circumstances. And then with this particular article, I love the fact that the code breaker, the guy that was had a fascination with it, calls out his autism as something that led him to not be able to let go of it. And so that how would you phrase that neurodivergent tendency to latch on to something until completion is essentially what led him to make some of the discoveries or put together some of the things that led to the theory that the case was actually solvable, even though the article talks about the LAPD, I think, is who owns the case. So they are unlikely. Yeah, they're unlikely to ever actually confirm or change a ruling or anything, just because of the fact that the suspect is deceased also at this point and everything else. But not to take away from the fact that it's just a overall interesting thing, I guess, is the best way to put it.
Yeah, and I think it's about to be an 80-year-old case.
Yeah.
So next year, a year from, it's 79 years this month. So, yeah, I'm not sure what you call that drive, but it's interesting. And
it's like, part of me would love to really go into the details with someone who could explain them and just listen to the story from that perspective, the actual true recounting, if you will. But this isn't a true crime podcast. At the end of the day, it's fascinating.
I'm sure this will make its rounds. I'm sure this will make its rounds in the true crime podcast. Wow, try saying that. True crime podcast. Yeah, that's like Irish wristwatch. Very difficult to say.
There are times when I thought it would be interesting to do something in the true crime genre. I don't have the time to do that kind of research for an episode consistently.
Yeah. It requires a lot of research. It's a saturated. I think it's a saturated market or saturated topic. So you got to really love it. Whenever my kids tell me they want to be a YouTube, I want to have a YouTube channel. I was like, okay, find the thing that you're passionate about and start making videos. That's all you need. That's where you start. You kids are smart kids. You'll figure out production. You'll figure out the things you want to figure out, but start making videos of the thing that you're passionate about. Because the best YouTube channels that I watch and follow, it's people doing something they're passionate about.
I agree.
Yeah, go ahead. Somebody, I don't know why this got into my head, but it was like, I think maybe it was on the last episode of the talk show, John Gruber's podcast, and I think he might have said, if you're talking to somebody who doesn't know who MKBHD is, probably whatever tech thing you're talking to about probably doesn't matter. That's not exactly what he said, but that was the gist of what it was. It was something more specific than that, but
I can agree with that.
Yeah. And he was talking to this is a conversation with Renee Ritchie there in his end of the year in review.
Yeah, I need to catch up and listen. I always enjoyed those episodes.
Yes, they're good. Last year it was Merlin Man. I miss podcasts with Renee Ritchie. I listen to a number of the iMore podcasts, and I really miss his show. He always had these just like little gems of wisdom that just the exact right thing to say in a particular moment where somebody would be talking and he would just. I know I've said this before, and we've talked about this before, but he would just pop in this it was always just like the right additive thing to say in the moment. So the other thing is this Atlantic article that you put in here. Is that the name of the article?
Yeah. Before we move on to it.
Wow, nice. I didn't.
Before we talk about that one though, I had to look because I didn't have time to actually copy notes into the notes from this article, and I knew there was a quote that I wanted to go back to because I just couldn't find it while I was scrolling because I couldn't multitask.
I guess before we move there, was there anything else you wanted or needed to say about the Black Dahlia and Zodiac?
Yeah, so that's what I was
Okay.
going to. The one thing out of the article that was really fascinating that I couldn't find exactly where it was right at first, but I'm just going to read it verbatim. To attack the problem of the Z13 cipher, Baber used AI and generated a list of 71 million possible 13-letter names. And then he used known details of the Zodiac Killer based on descriptions to cross-check those names against military, marriage, census, and other public records. So essentially, AI-assisted amateur investigation.
That's awesome.
Is what makes it... That was the piece that I found fascinating, but I didn't want to misstate what exactly he did. I had to find it in the article real quick.
Right. No, that's excellent.
And that was the piece that made me really want to copy it into the notes. Excuse me, especially given how much we've talked about AI in the past, couple months. Maybe a little bit longer.
Yeah. I remember in the beginning discussions we were like, these parlor tricks are pretty cool, but I remember thinking that this is not AI. And then the next conversation was like, I thought I knew what AI was. I think it was really just using some LLMs and being like, wow, this really passes the Turing test, and being like it feel like, I know there's not another human on here, but if somebody told me that you're talking to a person, I was like, this is a smart person, and just it's been interesting, because I remember thinking, it's like, maybe I remember when we had the discussion about like, maybe my original concept of what AI was a little bit limiting or further along as to what AI will become.
I still, not to take us down a rabbit hole, but let's
do it.
I still think of it as really more augmented intelligence than artificial intelligence. And it seems like a stupid distinction at times, but I think the way it's used, it makes more sense. The only reason it doesn't, the main reason I don't think you can actually say that is because you can be unintelligent and use it and intelligently project something that's incorrect and not recognize it. But assuming that you have some level of knowledge about what you're using, what you're crafting and creating and everything else, it augments your knowledge on that topic quite well, really, really well. I mean, in that regard, it's a phenomenal tool. And so, like, that's part of why I don't say this to everybody in general. I guess now it'll be out in public, but like, it's not like I go around saying, no, it's augmented intelligence, and here's why. Like, I don't want to make it sound like that. It's just my mental distinction at the moment has gotten to, it augments your intelligence on a subject. So if you're already intelligent on a subject, it's extremely useful. And if you're not, it augments that gap quite well too.
Yes. No, it's. I think that's a really great distinction, and maybe augmented. It doesn't matter. At this point, it's augmented versus artificial is splitting hairs, and I think that one of the reasons why I was like not thinking it was artificial intelligence is because you have to prompt it, and I think that's where the concept of augmented intelligence is helpful, because like when like I had a conversation, I'd put in some prompts to ChatGPT. And we went over this a few episodes ago about time travel and potentially the time travel in reverse being problematic because of the law of conservation of mass energy. And so, like, it's like I knew a thing, I just didn't know I didn't know much about it, and I certainly didn't know enough to articulate it well, other than saying, my atoms here are accounted for somewhere else, potentially somewhere else in the past. And so if I can't take my atoms that I have now and move them to the past. And so ChatGPT very much augmented that. So now it's like, I can go and I can look and memorize what it said and then speak about it. Now I'm speaking more articulately. I didn't come up with it on my own, but it didn't just give it to me. Like I had, there was some amount of I guess the work became easier.
Yeah.
But it didn't say, "Hey, John, do you want to talk? What's the thing you want to talk about?" And I say, "Time travel and the law of the conservation of mass energy." And then it goes, "Hey," I mean, I guess I kind of did that, but
I mean, it's different. There's certainly a distinction because like one of the things I've been playing with over the past few days is leveraging some level of AI model to kind of brainstorm and flesh out longer form content. And I'm not necessarily trying to be vague, but I don't have a cap or a specific purpose for it yet. It's more what I typically see with using any of the assistants is that they'll start out strong and then they'll kind of get kind of rubbish toward the end of what they're explaining, like the quick to jump leaps or make shortcuts in explaining things where the details will start out nice and strong and solid, and then it's almost like a human writing an essay where you have a word limit and you get halfway through and you've done a lot of description and now you just need to rush through the rest because you only need X number of words left, that type thing. Or if it's long enough form content where there are a couple of prompts in between, a lot of times it starts contradicting or having continuity related issues because of either lack of awareness of all the detail in the previous prompts, which depending on the model and tool and everything else may or may not exist anyway, et cetera, et cetera. And so what's the best way to leverage some of these tools to overcome that and write something that is significantly longer than the shorter versions of long form content, if that makes sense? And the whole reason I'm playing with this experiment is because I've many times thought about putting together like an outline for a book and fleshing it out, but I don't know that I really want to sit down and do it. If I could leverage tools to help fill in the details, like if I have the main information and just say, now summarize this in a way that is in my voice, or at least a semi-natural voice, don't embellish, don't add, or if you do embellish or add, cite what you're adding and why, that kind of thing.
Avoid M dashes.
Yeah, and that too. And so I have not found anything that works extremely well yet, but I just thought it was an interesting experiment because it could lead to either actually finally deciding to try to flesh out something book-wise, or would allow for a easier to use and leverage way to write scripts for a series of episodes instead of doing each episode individually. That would be aware of content in the previous ones to have, just playing around with different tools from that perspective. And so, yeah, all that to say that I still don't see where it's something I can leverage artificial intelligence without that comprehension and awareness and continuity in the same general discussion. Like I get it if I change to a new chat or a new project or document, however the tool specifies it. But if it's me using that tool tied to an account, there should be some level of awareness of our interactions for me to get on board with it actually being purely labeled artificial intelligence instead of I've just now started calling it augmented intelligence in my head. So,
I that makes sense, because that's where where it breaks down. Because like as you were talking about this, I was like, one of the things I tend to do is I give it prompts to get small amounts of information, and then I really feel like I have to guide with prompts, or start over sometimes, and there just isn't that. It's like it's like if you understand that when I had this nice back and forth chat with ChatGPT about time travel, and there's a few prompts, and it wasn't long. It was to read the prompts and the responses were, that was like, less than 5 minutes of reading. So it's not long form at all. But I feel like, as you're talking about like trying to do long form content, yeah, you have to really either do it in small things, because at the, underneath what underneath the ease of, you're putting in a little bit of, information and getting a lot back for how much you put in, but it doesn't know what it's doing. Like there's not a thing that's aware of what's coming out. It's really good at what comes out. We're the one that's, the reader, the user, the human is the one that's aware of what's coming out. The machine is just doing some calculations at the end of the day. It's just calculations, and it has no concept of what it is. That's why you'd have the, early on there were the hallucinations of like, you use glue to keep, to make cheese stick to pizza, that sort of thing. And it's getting better, but it makes sense to say it's not really artificial intelligence and say it's augmented intelligence. Just the way that a book is, it's just a lot faster and a lot easier than a book, and draws upon so much more information than a book, because the book was written by a person. But again, this machine, the software is drawing upon information that's written by lots of people so much. It's the same as a spreadsheet. People were able to make calculations and tables, and they put them in books. But then the spreadsheet came along and did it so much faster and better and with less error. That's what these LLMs are.
Yeah, it's been my experiments have been fun, because I have this concept of a story fiction. So just, nothing that has to be perfect, right? It's just, I've brainstormed a number of different things over the years. It's like, let me just see if I can write a couple of chapters and see how it does. And just getting through 3 chapters with fairly, I wouldn't say intense supervision, but close supervision. Like I'm certainly reading every word and correcting things and providing feedback.
Deleting dashes.
Yeah. It is better than me trying to just write it without having some things to, that sparked an idea and rewrite it, that kind of thing. But like it contradicts itself 2 or 3 times in the same single swath of output. So it's.
But to be fair, I know people that are like that too.
Yeah, I mean, yes,
I'm joking.
No, I'm absolutely. When you think about how much information it has to draw on, it's not surprising. It's just that that's the kind of thing that there can't be a sense of actual true artificial intelligence if it can't process something like that and say that it's a continuity thing.
Right. I think that, I think this goes back to our early discussions where we're like, this is not artificial intelligence. And I feel like we're kind of having a better, more refined version of that. So maybe our intelligence was augmented between then and now. And
nice.
But it is to say that, it would feel like, to me, it would cross some line where it's like, oh, this is truly artificial intelligence when it does have that continuity and it does have that awareness and it does understand what it's doing the same way you or I understand. Now, we're not perfect because we're organic beings and we're not machines, whereas like a machine can do those things. So when you get to like, Murderbot level of machinery, that's going to be interesting.
Yeah, so like the story concept kind of thing, just to use it as a good analogy, I would not be surprised to have a contradiction by a really good writer in something that they wrote, right? It's just not going to be a major continuity issue.
There's plot holes.
Yeah, or it's just something that a detail slipped through the cracks. They used one detail here and a different detail there. Like those things happen. That's just the nature of being an imperfect organic being. So I'm not saying it even has to be perfect. It's more that the level of continuity issue or contradiction is so large that it's too much to even be considered intelligence. For example, I had a short section that I was looking at yesterday, I think, where based on some prompts, it had a character do a thing, and then not even a paragraph later, the character was somewhere else doing something different. It's
Time
that's the
passed.
kind of thing that is just too inconsistent with current tools, I guess, or too consistently problematic with current tools would probably be the better way to put it.
Yeah, yeah, and they'll get better.
Yeah, for sure. I fully expect at some point you'll be able to say, okay, this is the framework of a story I want to tell. Generate me a story that fits this framework so that I can kind of read it and give you feedback and go through iterative processes that way, instead of, okay, I need to write all of this and create all this backstory and then feed it into something and have it do more of an audit trail instead of an actual generation of content. Though I guess people might be more skeptical of authors in general as we move forward with that type of thing. But I don't see a problem with that. I guess the problem I have with any of the AI tools is when it's just generate this thing. I don't even care anything about the content. I just want you to generate it and then plaster it everywhere. Like, if you have a reason for generating it to craft a story, whether it's visual or video or text or whatever, like, to me, that's a use of the tool. You're creating something using the tool. But I'm sure that line will continue to blur over time too.
Yeah. Well, and something I'd like to point out is that when humans make mistakes like this, plot hole mistakes, there is a way of leaning into it that is amusing. I was thinking of a program that I watched where a character was recast, and they recast with an older actor, and the character themselves was older. So initially the character should have been like 6 or 7 years old, and then when they got recast, they changed. I think a few episodes ago I mentioned something about retcon.
Yep.
Well, the character had become 10 or 11 years old, and they should have been 7 years old. And so the writers leaned into that change because the character had been gotten in trouble at school, and the dad was not showing a level of urgency or concern for what was going on with the character. And the mom said, "Do you even know how old your daughter is?" And I was like, "That's fantastic. That's fantastic."
That's good writing.
Yeah, that's just like, okay, we decided to, this character is going to be more involved. We've recast her. We had to make her older. Let's lean into it and make a joke out of it. So it's like, it's a nod to the audience so that you can be like, yes, it's like, we know that this is a change. You can, you can be like you can be like the mom. Do you even know how old your daughter? It's like, we're the dad. We don't know how old she is. Let's go.
I like that.
I do too. Really good writing.
So you asked if the headline was the actual article for this other one.
It is.
And I'll be honest, that's the only reason I even copied the article in. I haven't fully read the article. I saw it 5 minutes before we started recording. And so I copied it in because it's just not a headline I expected to read.
I love The Atlantic.
I do too, most of the time. I really don't know if this article is supposed to paint this in a positive or a negative. That's the only problem I have with it.
I would expect negative.
I hope so, but
they tend to be critical. They tend to be critical of things that I'm critical of. So,
I so far I have not had any issues with the Atlantic's reporting or anything else. Like, there is no precedent for me to be concerned about this one particular article. But I think the reason that I have it is because how do you run an article with that headline and still really poke at how problematic it is? And granted, I've already said I didn't get a chance to read the article, so I'm sure it's there. It's just I personally can't immediately think of it. And so that's the only thing that gives me pause about this one.
So have we said the name? Have we said the?
We have not.
I will give you let you do the honors.
As mentioned, it was posted by The Atlantic. The headline is "The Fuck Around and Find Out Presidency."
Yeah, and the byline is Missy Ryan and Ashley Parker.
And the tagline or the subheadline is that Truman, Reagan, and Monroe would not approve of the language, but a doctrine is a doctrine, even if it's only 5 words long. And so, yeah, like I certainly will take the time to go back and read the article in depth. As I talked about it, I can start to kind of think now of, oh, I bet this is how they are critical of it. I could not think of it when I first did, and part of that was proximity to recording and trying to get everything done. I just saw the headline, and my mind didn't think through it as clearly as it did.
So maybe this could be a teaser where we talk about it. We talk about it in more depth next week. Maybe not, but
I think we could do it either way. Like I don't mind doing it real time.
Okay. Well, this is coming off the heels of this administration using the military to snatch up a reverse to use the Daily Show, Jon Stewart on the Daily Show's joke, a reverse ICE.
I hadn't seen it yet, so that's good.
A reverse ICE importation, where we brought in the United States went and snatched the president of Venezuela and I think he's being held in Brooklyn, of all places, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that's correct.
Yeah. So I saw a fantastic. I can't remember who said. I can't remember who. I think it might have been a comedian. I just saw it was pictures of President Trump in Mar-a-Lago, in a makeshift situation room that doesn't seem very secure, because it was just, there were like these black curtains that were looked like they were hastily put up, and they weren't even. There were gaps. There was,
This was the attempt to recreate War Room, like Obama-esque photos, right?
That's what I was going to say. They
okay.
were, they're like, this guy so badly wants to be Obama, and the Situation Room capturing Bin Laden. It's like, and I asked Becca, I was like, how many days in a row do you think he woke up and be like, I need a Bin Laden, like whatever his version of I need a Bin Laden, and I need to look like, whether it was a conscious or not, he needed to look like Obama in the Situation Room capturing Bin Laden. And it's like, I'll find the music to add it in here, but they'll do some music. It's like the good music and then the dumb music, and he's the dumb music version of that. So it's just like I'm here for the finding out part, man. I am here for the finding out part.
So I just scanned over parts of the article real quick, and I think that they're critical enough. So the overall gist is, the administration tends to characterize the doctrine in this particular manner as, fuck around and find out. And scholars tend to be on the opposite side of, we shouldn't even consider it a doctrine if it's that crude and everything else, blah, blah, blah. So kind of the lines you would expect just from a headline perspective. But the big thing or my big takeaway, just scanning through what I scanned over, is it's very much a desire for this administration to try to frame it this way and to say that that's the doctrine, when in reality, it's just make Trump do whatever he wants realistically. Like that, at the end of the day, it's not even a F around and find out. It's a make Trump mad and see what he does. Like there's no rhyme or reason to it. And I think this is where I was having a little bit of concern the first time I saw the headline, is, to me, coming from a generation that kind of embodied this phrasing in many ways, this is very much I know what I can and can't do, or what I am qualified to do, not qualified to do, and I will show you that you are not qualified or can't support your opposition or whatever else. Like very much from a position of knowledge and awareness, instead of a position of bullying and temper tantrum throwing. I think that's the distinction that I would make. Not necessarily saying that either's technically right or wrong, because you could still describe both the same way. And you combine this with heightened rhetoric yet again about Greenland, and I can see where this could be used both ways. It's just that that's not the way I tended to use the term prior to now, and now it will be, or phrasing prior to now, and now it's just going to encompass another additional meaning.
Mm-hmm. I feel like it might be more suited to say play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Yeah, well, and I think that's part of why I had a little bit of an issue with the F run and find out phrasing as opposed to, but it is the same thing. It's just that I was making it more distinguished from the standpoint of thinking about the memes of, like Picard. How do you make this sound more professional? Have you seen those? Like, I don't even remember the exact phrasing, but it's something to the effect of, please test those theories at your earliest convenience,
Yes,
or something
yes.
to that effect.
It's the professional version is let's test that theory. Yeah, I'll see if I can find it. But I've heard someone
Yeah, and so I was literally just raising the idea or concept of the phrasing to that standard instead of thinking about, no, it actually does incorporate the play stupid games, win stupid prizes approach too. Like it is a continuum, and I just wasn't picturing the bottom half of the continuum. Oh, it even mentions Greenland in this article.
Yeah, because he brought up Greenland. And every time somebody tried to like spin it that it wasn't about oil, he came back and said it's about oil.
Yeah. The one thing that I really would like to see this, so just to keep in theme here with the whole fucking around and find out, I really would like to see a version of this play out where he decides to try to be aggressive toward Greenland, and the rest of the Western world, maybe, and hopefully some others potentially from the East, just say no and hit him with a big ruler on his nose.
Yeah. I would like to see our own military be the one that helps them to find out.
There are many scenarios where I could also point to that possibility. I just don't think it's likely. Because if you think about the use of force internationally, there's a lot more gray area about whether it's a legitimate or illegitimate order, unless there are clear like war crime type of things.
Well, I think the bombing of the boats was considered that. I mean, the British intelligence stopped sharing with us. They because of that, because they didn't. I guess they were waiting. I guess it's they started. They stopped sharing intelligence before they got to a point where this could be considered a war crime. But the UN's going to do nothing. I'm not sure that anyone or Europe collectively will do anything until if history is repeating itself. Poland has to be occupied. France has to be occupied. Where we got to start invading the equivalent of those countries and South Africa being occupied. That it's gonna take that. So it's gonna take Greenland, Cuba, Mexico, Colombia, because he mentioned Colombia after this. So it's gonna take all of that.
I don't see anybody coming to South America's aid.
No.
Like
you're right. You're right.
If expansion or if this imperialistic march happens in the Americas, I don't see anybody raising a finger. I see plenty of you shouldn't do that. You should respect borders.
There's a lot of finger wagging,
but I don't see anybody actually attempting to intervene.
Yeah.
Maybe Canada getting antsy and getting somebody involved if it gets that far. I don't know that I see that either.
No, I don't see that. Not to. It's like, and I know that I sound like I'm admonishing the West the other Western countries. I'm not trying to admonish them. I'm just saying that they're not great either.
Well, historically, without the backing of the U.S., they haven't had the might to do everything that would be required to stop the U.S. in modern era. Like, that's, I guess realistically, that's the problem, right? American might is still large enough combined or compared to the combined forces of European countries.
Yes.
That there has to be a ramp up for European countries to be able to do anything against U.S.
Yes.
force.
So what the country I see actually doing something about it, and I don't think they have, with the Americas, I don't think they have any. It doesn't matter to them. But the country that would be doing something about it is going to be China. China is currently on its way up as America is in decline.
Yeah, overall, I would agree. I mean, you could make the case that India could be a potential player in that mix, not solo, but
I don't think they have I don't think they have think they have enough of the technology.
Yeah, it's more a combination of partnering with people who would provide some of those gaps, and then just numbers. I mean, at a certain point, it is a numbers game.
Yeah, I think China could do it on its own right now.
I do too.
They have the technology, they have the military, they have the numbers.
I remember there was a theoretical paper that was written that talked about if China were to take on a very aggressive, and it didn't frame it as a suicidal tendency with regard to numbers, but certainly a lack of concern for casualties in general, that just by sheer population, they could probably overrun almost any power if they could land. Like it was, if you could get troops there, then it wouldn't matter because of the sheer population difference.
Yeah. And the thing is, it's like, nobody wants this. Nobody wants this at all. We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work or are interested in listening to our new after show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap.